Hey, hello! This is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of getting students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I work at IE Business School Publishing, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Hello, and welcome to Professor Game. As always, we want to start with a big blast, and how better to do this than with An Coppens. An Coppens is a leading expert in gamification for employee and learner engagement, with over 15 years of experience in creating behavior change through creative and innovative solutions. She's been among the top gamification gurus worldwide since 2012. She's an award-winning speaker, learning and development professional, business and executive coach, and author. She's the founder and chief game changer of Gamification Nation, and Anne offers gamification design services, gamification membership community, and online learning programs. She's worked with global brands in media, finance, education, and fast-moving consumer goods market. She's advised hundreds of business owners and inspired thousands of individuals to level up their game. And I must say I'm also pretty excited about having her on the show after being the host of Gamification World Congress 2016, which was amazing. So Anne, welcome to Professor Game. And Anne, are you ready to engage?
Absolutely, Professor Game. Let's get the games begin.
Great, that's awesome news. And the first thing we want to get into is very simple. What does a regular day with An Coppens look like?
Ooh, it's a tough question. I don't think there is a regular day, because actually there are some regular things I do on a weekly basis, but maybe on a daily basis. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there's a blog post. Most of the other days, I spend my time have to do lots of research, obviously, and I play games. That has to be regular part of every day. Well, every day, actually, I'm pretty good at that. That piece always works because you always have to discover new game mechanics and things, What I also do a lot is obviously game design itself, or gamification design, interacting with clients and chasing up new business. I mean, to me, the whole setup of business, and that's how I made some of my business coaching clients very successful, is, let's break it down and make it a game. So I have some monthly and weekly and then daily targets that I aim to hit. And then when I hit them, my own little CRM system rewards me with points and different things. And I set rewards for myself based on what I want to achieve. So, for example, today...
Gamification on self.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. This is how my brain works, unfortunately, since I was very little. I think I have my parents to thank for it, because I learned the capitals of all of the cities of all of the countries around Europe with grapes.
Wow.
And I remember every time I got one right, I earned the grape. And
so you're a huge fan of grapes, I'm sure.
Oh, well, I was then, I was in a healthy eating phase. They come and go sometimes. But in fact, all of my parties as a child, all of my activities as a child, and the reason why I have an over average productivity level is because I actually gamify everything I do. It's how I grew up. It's how I still work. So, for example, today I had to get a proposal out to a client, and I set myself a nice coffee break as a reward. And I really held off until the proposal was all done and dusted before I took my coffee break. And then I just sat and watched out the window for the duration of my coffee, which is a rare occasion these days.
I've tried many of these things, but to be honest, the formality of how you achieve this is amazing, because I kind of tend to do it naturally sometimes, and I realize I'm kind of gaming myself into something. But having like all these reward systems and all that all these things is very nice. I mean, having the discipline as well to think about these things and purposefully do them. I'm sure it works very well, and that's for sure a reason of your hyper productivity.
Yes, and it does work. I mean, I have little post-it notes with these things on all over the place. So people think I'm quite funny that way. And actually, my CRM system decided to gamify some of the actions without telling their customer base. And then all of a sudden, I was starting to earn badges in my own system. I was like, "Ooh, this is pretty cool. Ooh, I like this." And it's so crazy that, I can get really excited about such a small thing. So my typical day is very, very varied. So some of my targets include speaking at least once a month, pitching to new clients at least once a week. And in order to do that, there's proposals that need to go out and basically follow-ups that need to be done with people I meet around the place. So, the typical week is probably filled with, let's say,
Many
probably,
quests.
yeah, mini quests, and also about 50% business development these days, and then 50% actually delivery and design. And then once we have a big project, we just wrapped up a really big project. It's, very focused on making sure that the client gets what they want, and that we achieve the objectives that they have for their customers and for their employees.
Wow, that sounds very, very exciting. But now we're going to get into something very different. We want you to tell us a story of what you feel was the worst application of game thinking that you've somehow participated in.
Oof.
I mean, no, you don't have to call any names. We all know that there's many NDAs in the middle and all these things,
Yeah.
but we just want this. I mean, we're focused on the story, the experience, to learn from that mainly.
Yes, I have one, and I guess I definitely won't name the names, but I will give you the picture of the industry because it has
Amazing.
context, and I think it may affect other people as well. It was a multi-party project, so different partners from different countries with different remits coming together to deliver a gamified competition or a MOOC dressed up as a gamified quest or a gamified competition dressed up as a MOOC. Nobody knew at any point what we were actually working towards. I flagged it early on. I said, look, we're either creating a competition or we're creating a MOOC or something else. But, it was really frustrating trying to get that through. So first of all, at the basic level, setting the objective was a disaster because if you don't know what you're creating, then you cannot ever create something useful. So that was the first challenge. It was a project with many challenges, let's just say. Then we had time challenges, so that it had to be implemented in the space of a 6-week period. They had engaged us in late November for something that needed, late September, but nobody made decisions until late November, and it had to go live by the beginning of December. So it was like all hands on deck trying to get this stuff done. I had set deadlines to the IT partners, and I said, look, I need this to be in place by then so I can do my piece. They didn't deliver. They said they had, they didn't. I said they didn't. They said they had. Comedy of error. Yes. And then
I delivered Wi-Fi. Well, but I can't connect to the internet and there's no Wi-Fi. Well, but I delivered it. How?
Yeah, is it still in the box? Is the first question. And I mean, I completely lost the plot with them at one point, and I think that didn't help the process either. So I got really angry. I'm a really nice person, but don't get me angry.
I think the nicest people, when they get angry, are the toughest ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I went beyond nice then. I was not friendly or easygoing on the end IT providers who were supposed to be the fixers in the middle. So the gamification choice of platform we had made had to be implemented by an IT provider in India. The IT provider in India said, yes, we can do it. The reality was that no, they didn't. And, every time we asked them a question, they said yes. Every time the developers from the gamification platform looked at it, it was just not happening or not there or not implemented correctly. We said help sheet, documentation, God knows what. And, so on live date or on launch date, we didn't actually have a project that was live or that was, I would say, worthy of being called gamification or gamified or including gamified thinking. What worked on it was a progression bar where all the tasks were listed. What also worked was an interactive video, but then point system to track achievement, non-existent, didn't quite work as it's supposed to. The integration of the platform looked really, really odd. It was like it was standing out like a really sore thumb on a page. And you kind of go, oh, this is not quite how we wanted it. Then we had, they insisted on having badges. They insisted on having leaderboards.
PBL.
Whereas, yeah, great.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not? It was academics who insisted that we should have it. My side was saying, look, if we just made it a quest and we created a storyline and each specific element actually has a story attached, yes, but then the IT people couldn't implement the storyline. And I was like, so in the end, we ended up with a very lukewarm PBL, which didn't drive behavior, funny enough. Surprisingly. And then the number of participants didn't actually hit the targets we wanted, pretty much because the share mechanics also didn't work.
I mean, this is painful to just hear.
Oh, it was a painful project. It's by far the worst thing I've ever experienced. And it is by far the worst, I think, 2-month period I've ever worked on any given project. So, there was a comedy of errors upon a comedy of errors. So the game thinking fundamentally was flawed, as in they insisted on overriding storylines with points and badges. The badges part did work, but not... there's game thinking where badges are actually well thought through and really helpful.
Relevant,
yeah, but in this case, they were tiny, non-explained, and therefore people got them, shrugged their shoulders, and moved on, sort of saying something happened on my profile, but I don't know why and what sort of stuff. So,
I think there's many things to learn from that story, Anne, and the thing I'd like to point out, I was going to say that one of the main things is setting your objectives very straight, and that I still do think that's important. But
absolutely.
maybe even beyond that, I think if you're going to work in a gamification project and you're not the guy who's deciding, make sure that the guy who is on board. I mean that he's going to let you help him
run it. Yes, and when you're dealing with decision by committee, that's not easy to achieve, because in a committee situation, you always have some parties in favor and some parties against, and some parties who really just don't get it. So, it was a bit of a tricky situation because you had so many different parties to the decision making, objectives that differed, and effectively a system that was not up to the scratches that we needed it to be. So, it was a mission impossible in some ways. So now, the biggest learning for me out of that was that, anytime we start now, if the objectives are not clear and they're not willing to stick to one approach, then we just don't engage. And the other side of it, we also need to know. Yeah. I've said no to clients when they were really wishy-washy and they just wanted a few points and badges. And I said, well, look, there's loads of people that can do that, but we don't do it.
That's not my business. I'm into something else.
Yeah, I want behavior change. I want motivation to go up. I want people to take part, have fun, but not... I want to have fun too. And that project, anytime I see multi-people projects, I was like, it reminds me of that one.
So let's take a big shift again, once again, and I'd like to tell us one big challenge that you faced and you've actually solved using gamification, game thinking, or gameful dynamics.
Yes, I guess changing careers.
Wow.
And it's a very personal one because I was a business coach, ran a very successful business in Ireland. The recession hit very, very badly in 2008. And I had a TV presence. I had hundreds of clients in different sectors, but coaching at the time was still considered quite a luxury. So as soon as people started to feel the pinch in business, the first thing that goes is training and anything associated with it. So business coaching was the first thing to go. So having to gone from having a team of people working for you to actually close down and then not even being able to survive was probably one of the biggest challenges in life that I ever faced. And the only way I could actually overcome it, and actually in the original first instance after, I had to close everything down. I had set a limit of if by the 1st of June I don't win a specific contract for a specific amount, then it's game over, and we go and decide what we're going to do. So the 1st of June came, and that day I had a phone call of the one contract that would have tipped me over and made me continue to say budget's frozen. Oof. And I said, oh crap, game over.
This is done.
This is done. This is not going to happen. So I went and I lived in Cork in Ireland, which is on the river. And I went and sat by the river and I wrote out, okay, if we're going to do something else, what else can I do? So I made a resource inventory of all of my skills and where else could you apply that? And then if I have to move from this city, then where would I go? What would I find acceptable? And there was a whole wash list of those things. And then I made it a game to see how much could I maximize all of my requirements against jobs that were out there or people I knew that could help me and, different things. So, that was game thinking applied to that situation. Now, absolutely. Personally, I took it very personal because when you hire people, you want to keep them. You want to make sure that their livelihoods looked after. So I took it very, very personally. So the only shift I could make in my head to deal with the whole process, and that took time in its own right. I mean, I didn't manage to do that straight away, but it took some time. But the only way of actually getting over the ordeal was to think of it as a game where you've just lost a life, but 20 minutes later, effectively, it refreshes. So start over. When you start over, you can apply a different strategy or use the same one and see if it still works.
You're respawning completely.
Exactly. So, and that was the one way I actually got over it and actually gained enough confidence and also financials back in order to, I suppose, move from where that really nasty place of, I suppose, everything's gone wrong, what now, to actually, I'm happy to try again. I'm going to make a move. This is going to be good. It's just like, and for days on end, I kept saying, it's just a new life, game over, game new, start again.
And it's been amazing. I mean, here you are. You are one of the top gurus in gamification in the world. I mean, it's definitely been amazing. The results are completely fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, if I approach it with game mindset, things work for me. If I approach it with, this must work in very serious business mode, it doesn't. So I suppose that's been the biggest lesson out of all that. But I mean, it's great fun. I mean, I enjoy every single day now of everything that we do. So, in some way.
Big shout out to everybody out there. Gamification can be fun every single day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I made people have fun at the Gamification World Congress by making them dance, one of my trademark tricks.
Completely. And one question that we will always would like to get from you, the big experts and gurus. Do you follow any process when you try to apply gamification to a situation or to a project? Do you follow in a process, and what process, if so, or framework could be as well?
Yes, yes. I follow process. It's got a few steps in it. First is define business objectives. Second is understand your users and do as much user research as you possibly can. Again, it's a showstopper if people that want me as their gamification consultant. If they don't want to engage in user research, then we don't do projects. So those first two are absolutely non-negotiable. Then based on the user feedback and the business objectives, we come back with...
business or learning objectives?
Well, it can be either or. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you're deciding on a learning program, there's usually a reason why you want gamification to help you with
To come
something.
in. Yeah.
So whether that's learner retention, whether that's actual behavior change, whether that is, whatever other reason people may have. So there's usually an objective, something measurable that you can work towards. So the measurability, target audience research is key. Those two I always insist on. And then we basically go into design thinking together with the client. So I try and do that collaboratively, because I've learned that when people are from the client side are engaged in how your thinking is regarding gamification and regarding the changes that possibly will have to happen to make it work, then they're more on board and less likely to reject and resist what comes after. So we try to keep them in the loop as much as possible. And only then, once we've done that with a few target groups strategically picked based on the target audience, then we go into gamification design mode. And, we use a collection of what's most appropriate. I mean, I love the Octalysis framework by Yukai Chao, so we definitely use some of that. For the user profiling, obviously, Anjay's system on player profiles, we definitely use that. So, use a combination. I've trained with every single one of the great minds in this industry, because I basically was so hungry to just learn everything there had to be learned about it. So I took up ideas from Mario Herger, Gabe Zickerman, Jane McGonigal, Yukai, the Coursera courses, the iVersity courses. So, I mean, you
Stay
name
hungry.
it,
Stay
I've
hungry.
done it.
That's fundamental. Stay hungry for knowledge, for more
Absolutely.
information on there's many people who have been out there and done that many times. Sometimes we do something new, but there's
Yep.
always something we can learn from others. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to create this show, to learn from experiences from other people who've been there, who've done
Yep.
great, amazing things, and we definitely can always do that.
Exactly. I think the day you stop learning or stop listening to others is the day you're very likely to go backwards. And, sometimes you have to go with what you've got because of whatever resources limitations you have, which is a fun resource game in its own right. But, that's one thing. And I suppose the final step of our process is that we make sure that throughout the implementation, we actually stick around. So typically, a lot of gamification companies we've come across just basically give them people to design, implement a system, and then disappear off the planet. We want to make sure that they hit the target. So I typically set up in the original implementation and rollout phases regular calls to make sure that we're checking in, everything's working, everything's going to plan. And then on a monthly basis, checking in, okay, are we reaching the targets? How's engagement? What's happening in the company? What's going well? What's not going well? Should we change anything? Because
do you do any kind of iterations with clients regularly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think that's how gamification works. Because people will get used to specific gamification mechanics, and then they become bored with it. So keeping it fresh, keeping it alive is always good. So With some people, we implement that from the start with the gamification design. So we might have an annual plan that we roll out and we set up with that in mind. With others, we do it on the fly. So it depends on the structure contract we have with them.
Amazing, Anne. We're now going to move to our second part of the interview. This one, and here we will be expecting shorter answers, like more straightforward. Probably, I'm going to challenge you here because I know it's a very passionate topic, not only for you but for me as well. And we could spend here probably all day talking about this.
Yes.
I'm sure we could just like Gamification World Congress. We would spend all day talking about it.
Absolutely.
So here I'm going to make a big challenge, and it's to try to keep our answers quick, okay?
Yep.
So the first
I'll do my best.
Great. So name one thing you would consider a best practice for gamification.
Understand your users as in as much detail as possible.
Amazing. That's very, very important. What's your favorite game?
That's probably the hardest one. Pokemon Go is a biggie at the moment. So that one I play at least once a day, every day. And the other one is Blossoms, which is one of the variations of Candy Crush. I like the pictures in it. It's just rather daft. But my all-time forever favorite is SimCity.
SimCity, wow, that's an amazing game.
Yeah, it's awesome.
A lot to learn from it.
Yes.
And who would you like to listen to interviewed in Professor Game?
I would love to listen to Jane McGonigal.
Wow. Yeah. We'll sure get to her.
Yes.
We'll sure
if you can get her, I think she would be fab.
I'm sure she will. What book, besides, of course, your own, would you recommend to our listeners?
I would say Ninjas Like to Play by Andrew. I know it's a bit
Ninja
of
Monkeys Like to Play.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I love that book. It's not too big and it's not too easy, and it actually sends very powerful messages throughout. So I love that one. And the thing that got me into gamification is Jane McGonigal's book, Reality is Broken. So those two are really high on my recommendation list.
So to join in your bookshelf, Gamification in Business, we would also like to have Ninja Monkeys Like to Play, and Jane McGonigal's, which one? Was it Super Better or no?
No, the other one, Reality is Broken.
Reality is Broken, that's it, from Jane McGonigal.
Yes, I mean, I have everybody else's too.
Oh, for sure. These are just top recommendations. It doesn't mean we don't love the other guys who have great and amazing books.
I have to say that. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
No getting jealous, guys. I know you're listening.
Exactly. I like them all. I just read.
So, do you have an advice for our players who have one of our users who has never engaged their learners in using game thinking? What would you tell them? What would be your first advice if they have never been able to do this? How would you advise them to start using game thinking in their daily life?
Start little by little. So start easy. The best place to start in learning is set a quest. And a quest can be, a number of small tasks that you give people. And when they accomplish all of the tasks, there is an element of reward or an element of extra information that you give them. So that would be my first piece of advice, is build a quest with a good storyline, so that there's a bit of mystery, a bit of intrigue. Yeah, that would be my best advice.
That's exciting always. Now we will come to the random, though curated question from the audience. Okay, so this time we got a question from Ben. I'm not gonna completely identify him because he asked not to be absolutely identified. But Ben, he's an economics professor, and what he tells us is that he has found it challenging to engage his students on the session regarding, and ironically here, game theory. This is the prisoner's dilemma. It's not game design directly. So he says, it's counterintuitive because he does believe it's a very interesting topic. But every time he explains the topic, and he says he tries to do a role play of the prisoner's dilemma or something similar. Mm-hmm. Of course, probably within the same prisoner's dilemma itself. He says he can see that his students start to yawn in the classroom. So And what would you advise? How would you approach this problem through game thinking? Of course, a very general, simple, in a very general and simple world.
Yes, I mean, the prisoner's dilemma in its nature is actually not fun, because because you're actually given choices where actually nobody really wins. So, so and that's part of the challenge. So, what can you do to turn it around and make fun elements? Can you have an element of surprise built in where you change some of the parameters of decision making? Which also is part of game thinking, game theory. And, can you teach them by doing and letting them do it and letting them experience it to say, look, here's the concept. I need you to come up with a game and it needs to be fun.
Wow. Creation of games directly by the users. This is a very exciting topic. I'm very excited about that topic in general.
Yeah, and I mean, I did a course in game theory as well, and in actual fact, there is so much mathematics involved, but actually in old grade games, you have a lot of mathematics and a lot of, I suppose, research that goes into it, that if you go first, your chances of winning are so much higher than if you go second. And, how can you break that route, and what can you do to change that? And it's like the impossible dilemma where you kind of say, if I do this, this doesn't work. If I do that, that doesn't work. So, but let people work it out, because I've seen it played out in leadership training, and it worked quite well when people were only given a small bit of the instruction every single time, and they had to work out the strategy on how to deal with it.
Interesting.
And then based on the chosen strategy, they obviously had a different outcome.
Very, very interesting. Very nice. So, Ben, there you have your answer. Yep. I'm sure you're going to make great profit from it.
Yes.
So, Anne,
I failed miserably in quick answers.
No, that was perfect. That was actually quite short. The other part, I think we spent like 25 minutes in this whole section with like 7 questions. We did it in 5. So I think we actually hit the target.
Okay, fine.
So the last question is, how can we connect with you? Some final quick piece of advice. And then we'll say game over.
Yes. I mean, easiest way is through the interwebs. I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. So at Gamification Nut is my tweet feed. And www.gamificationnation.com is where the blogs are found. And yes, Google An Coppens or Google Gamification Nation, and you'll find me.
So An Coppens, An with 1 N and 2 P's, just in case if you're going to Google it. But if you do just 1 P, it's probably going to come up, or An Coppens anyway, because she's very, very good at that.
Yeah, or Gamification Nation, and you'll find us. So yes, and the final piece of advice is always aim to have fun. If the job you're doing is not fun, don't do it. Don't keep doing it.
Well, thank you very much, An Coppens, for sharing all your experience, all that knowledge, all those stories that you have had with us. Thank you very much for participating, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Super. Thank you very much, Professor Game.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, Engagers, thank you for listening to Professor Game Podcast. If you want more interviews with incredible guests like An Coppens and lots of awesomeness from Professor Game, please take a minute, subscribe to and rate this podcast on iTunes. You can find a direct link on professorgame.com/iTunes. And why iTunes? Because this will help us reach other engagers who will be our allies to make education amazing using gamification. Hey, and by the way, if you like the show and want a free gift, then subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes, then send a screenshot where you show this to professor@professorgame.com with review gift in the subject line, and we'll send it to you. Before you click continue to your next mission, would you like to know how Sylvester Arnab would make a statistics class amazing using gamification? Well, listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there!